Hey there. So I'm going to be presenting Axia, which is a project I'm currently working on, and also applying with in the application for. And basically, I'll do a quick demo of the prototype that I've built and where I'm at and where I'm sort of headed. But at the core, the problem Axia is trying to solve is basically trying to unify customer data across Gong, Salesforce, Zendesk, Slack, HubSpot, and all these other third-party SaaS applications in one particular spot, presenting a solid, unified knowledge graph and overview of for each customer across these different applications. And it's going to be leveraging AI to do this rather than the traditional approaches, which is usually some lines of like ETL or data connections between these particular applications, like a data connector between Zendesk and Salesforce, or say reverse ETL, where the data analytics team builds these models and then pushes them back out and associates the associates the data between, say, Gong and Salesforce, or Zendesk and Salesforce, etc., likely through some fuzzy matching, and then pushes it back out to a particular software, usually Salesforce, and that sort of serves as a source of truth. The problem with those approaches is they're usually very rigid and non-semantical and more deterministic. So they're more rule-based, like if this email contains this particular domain or something along those lines, then make the association. Versus this, the way I'm going to be doing it is, or my approach of what I built is, basically it takes this information and it starts with Salesforce and then leverages an LLM to actually make the association. So an LLM will go through each account, pull in the Gong information, pull in the Slack channels information. Right now I've just limited it to those, and then determines out of this which ones are relevant or associated with this particular account, if any. And then, yeah, it builds that sort of knowledge graph, and then that enables employees to query that knowledge graph. So example questions they could ask, which I'm going to demonstrate via Slackbot, is, give me, give me information of our closed one. For the last 10 calls that we've had with our customers, give me the objections or product requests they've raised. Or, give me the information of the highest closed won deal that we've had. And then do we have current open opportunities with them or Gong calls? Like, give me information about them, the most up-to-date information. The agent will then search through all of this sort of information, like I'll demonstrate, and essentially present that answer to the user. So the first thing it does is it creates the knowledge graph. This is an example view. This is all synthetic data that I've used in LLM to generate. So basically all these customers, for basically what it did was, essentially it had a CSV of Salesforce accounts and opportunities, then it had a separate CSV of Gong calls, and then it had a separate CSV of Slack channels. And then the agent went through each of them and built this sort of unified customer 360 or knowledge graph view for this particular synthetic data. So for example, say for this particular company, it obviously got the opportunities, but then it also associated the Gong call for this particular account or this customer, and then also the Slack channel. And then, it did this again for all of these other sort of accounts and opportunities as well. All these other customers. So that's the core of what it does in the first step, is it builds this knowledge graph. And then with this knowledge graph, you then have this agent, which I presented it through a Slack bot, that you could then interact with. So I want to first give an example of what essentially happens, and then we'll do a live demo or example as well. So let's say for this particular question, can you give me a detailed list of needs and objections that our customers have raised in our Gong calls, say for the last 10 calls? So this highlights the agent very well, or in other words, what capabilities it has. Basically, this agent is not just a SQL generation agent, so to speak. It also has semantic search. When that knowledge graph is built, that data is stored into a SQL database, but then it's also embedded. So it creates embeddings for each of the customers on its metadata. So the Gong summary transcripts, the Slack channels, the opportunities, etc. So that way it allows for semantic search. And like Cursor, or like, when you're, say, have like a request to code a particular feature, Cursor or Claude Code will build a sort of plan with a to-do list of like, these are the steps I think I need to do to complete this. This is exactly what this does. So this I call like an orchestrator agent, where it'll take this particular question and then it'll say, okay, we first need to generate a SQL query. So retrieve the last 10 calls, with this corresponding metadata. Then I need to actually search through these calls and then find mentions for customer needs or objections. So it's not just, filtering. So it's actually searching within those calls to find like the relevant information that the user has requested. And then it's like, okay, I have all the information now. Now I can generate the final answer. And you can see it, right? So it generates the SQL query. It then generates it then does the semantic search, and then it provides the final answer. Another question could be this one, right? Where can you provide me all the opportunities account information that have been created at the beginning of this month until now, right? So for this particular question, it's just a SQL generation question. So it identifies that, okay, I just need to generate SQL, and then I'll have enough information to generate the final answer. Generates the SQL, and then it also generates the final answer. There's a lot of steps that go in between. So the SQL agent has like a validation agent that I've built, which essentially pulls distinct values from each of the columns the AI feels is relevant for this particular query. So that way, like it pulls the distinct values from those columns. So that way it's not like hallucinating on abbreviations or the metadata associated within each of these columns, because that's a common mistake with SQL generation. So, and I'm actively working on improving it as well to make it even more precise. So let's just say a particular example is, something along the lines of how many current open opportunities do we have? Give me the top 10 by the dollar amount, and also let me know the total calls we have done with each of these ops. So this would actually take some time if you were to have to do this, because you would have to go to Salesforce and then Gong, or whatever your call recording software is, or you would essentially have to do some sort of a SQL query within a data warehouse like BigQuery or Snowflake. And with the limitation with the latter is, other than you having to know how to write SQL, you'd also have to, you can't do semantic search. So if you were to want to search between these calls, you would have to essentially write a Python script that then would have to pass this to an LLM to actually do that, or do whatever sort of other processing. So in this particular question, it's just a pure SQL question. So first, identify these 3 steps. So it says, okay, retrieve all current open ops ordered by dollar amount in descending order. And then for each opportunity, count the number of gone calls associated with that account, right? So these are the 3 steps. And then the third step is to present the final answer to the user. So it generates the first SQL query. And then from there, it generates the second one. So you can see it found 10 of these rows for the opportunities. And then it generates the gone calls. So basically, it's going to do... in this particular case, what it ended up doing was it joined on all the account IDs. And then in the third case, it filtered for the ones based on, current open opportunities by the dollar amount. And then it presented the opportunity name, the stage, and the dollar amount, and the number of gone calls it's had. So this is an example of like a query that you could run with this. But again, I could ask a follow-up question here of like, give me a summary of like objections, or just give me a summary of what's sort of happened across, all the calls currently in negotiation or qualification or something along those lines. And then it would do another basically execution step and go through that process to generate this answer. But this is sort of the step-by-step process of how this works. And yeah, this is what I'm currently presenting or working on, and also applying with the application and where I'm currently at. The next steps here are to improve the accuracy really hone and improve the accuracy. And I'm building this sort of synthetic eval pipeline at the moment to really get this to work well on real data. And then from there, start actually demoing this to customers and potential customers, and then, starting to do POCs and seeing if this works within their company and figuring out how to get this to work, essentially, of improving it and iterating from there. Thank you.